One of my favorite times of the year, it's really year-round, is when I watch sports and the playoffs start. Or maybe it's March Madness or something like that. And the reason is because you see the focus that they have. They're being prudent. They're getting ready. They're showing that they're ready to go because they know that the clock is ticking down and they have to be ready for when it ends and try to win the game. And that's the thing to remember as well, though, too. It's not just in life as well. When we have appointments that are due, like doctor's appointments, whether we have projects at work, we have to focus and get that work done because we have to be ready and have it done because there is a set deadline. And it's like that with anything. And it's like that in our faith as well. Because we don't know when the Lord is going to be coming. Because it gives us example, though, of a wedding. And the servants who await their master's return from a wedding, ready to open immediately when he opens and knocks. To be vigilant and to be ready for that moment. And I experienced that, though, yesterday as well. Firsthand. Because my nephew got married yesterday. It was nice. It was, nice reception and all that, but I stayed a little late and stuff. And my dog was staying at my parents' house. When he heard me open the door, he was ready for the master to come. He knocked me out of the way so he can run outside. He was very vigilant and ready for that moment, being cooped up, though, for 7 hours or whatever it was. And it reminded me something, though, too. I thought about that on the way back, when he started snoring on the way back, and how we have to be like that as well, though, too. Always vigilant, always ready. Just like the athletes are in sports at the end of the game, just as we're getting ready for, reports, we seem to work hardest when we know there's a deadline. But the thing is, that's not what we hear about in today's gospel. It's not put it off till later and be vigilant at the end when you know when the deadline is. But here's the thing, though. It talks about in the gospel when the Son of Man comes. I have no idea when he's coming. That's why we need to always be vigilant and we need to be ready. Because here's the thing I can tell you. Whether it's the second coming of Jesus, whenever that may be, or not, we will be standing before God at a moment, whether it's then or at our death. And that's why we need to be vigilant and we need to be ready, not put things off. Because we don't know when that moment's going to be. And that's why we have this attitude, well, I'll get to it later, and, it'll be fine. But this gospel made me think back to COVID as well. I know I hate bringing it up because when we think of COVID-1, doesn't it feel like it was like 15 years ago? Like a lifetime ago. It was only 5 years ago. And my experience with COVID is probably a little bit different than up here in this part of Michigan, because when I went through COVID, I was in Erie, Michigan, and on the Ohio border. Now, I don't like, Ohio's not the most exciting state at all, but my experience was different because everything opened up there about, like a month and a half before Michigan. And so I found one reason to like Ohio, and the 30-cent cheaper gas. But that's besides the point. And the thing is, but think back, though, too, with that, all the restrictions we had. I mean, I'm not trying to get into whether they're good, bad, or whatever. Just remember how it was, though, where we couldn't do anything. And, everything was locked down. We didn't know what was going on. And one of the things I experienced, though, too, and I'm sure it was here as well, after a while, when we didn't have Mass, when we weren't receiving the Eucharist, people were telling me that they wanted to come back. They couldn't wait to receive God again. They were eager for that moment. And what happened? the restrictions went away slowly and stuff, and we began to have Mass in person. And I still remember that moment as well, though, too. People coming to Mass, filled with joy, filled with tears, with happiness, because in many ways they came back home. And even myself, though, looking out in the congregation as well is something I'll never take for granted again, because you have no idea how hard it is to say Mass and preach looking at a camera as well. But the thing is, that excitement and joy lasted. But what happened, though, as more things opened up and we started doing more things and getting back to our normal life, I guess you could say, that habits that we had before COVID, when we came to Mass, came back, where we began to take Mass for granted again. Oh, it's no big deal if I miss Mass. I'll just go next week. Yeah, it is a big deal. Oh, I mean, I'll pray later, and it turns out I don't pray at all. No, prayer is important. Having that relationship with God is. We lost that sense of a desire of what is important, and we lost that sense of being vigilant as well. Because look at all the work we did at different churches to make things happen, so we have some time of a connection with God. And yet we forget about it. But there are websites, there's different tools that could connect us where we could go to Mass, partake in the sacraments, wherever we travel, whatever we do. But we have to make the effort to do that. Now, the question is, if we knew when Jesus was coming back for the second coming, if we knew the moment when we were going to die and stand before God, would we be vigilant then? Would everybody be vigilant then? The thing is no. Because, that won't happen. That's just something. No, when the Lord comes, we'll know. And that's why we have to be vigilant and we have to be ready. Because St. Paul talks about our journey of faith. He uses an example of a race as well. When it comes to running a race, you can't just walk out there and start running a marathon. How far do you think we would get? I would just hope to get down the steps, let alone and maybe around the block a couple times. Because there is no way I could run, I think it's 26 miles or whatever it is. But when it comes to that, that's why we have that sense of vigilance and be ready to put the effort in, to grow in holiness, to be ready for that moment to stand before God. That's what our life is about, is training for that moment when we stand before Jesus Christ. Now, it doesn't mean that we'll be perfect in our lives or anything else, but that's why we go to Mass. That's why we partake in the sacraments. That's why we go into confession as well, to make ourselves ready for God. Because if I knew, say, God was going to come back in, say, 10 minutes from now, the second coming, I would find Father Dave for myself to make sure I'm ready as well. Then we'll start confessions and go, because priests still have to go too. That's the thing we have to remember. We have to be ready. We plan for everything else, but why don't we plan for this? But I think the biggest thing we have to do is we can't run a marathon and train for a marathon in one day. It takes one moment, one step in every day of saying yes to Jesus and walking with God to make us ready for that moment and to let go of other things that may be pulling us away. Because we all have those thorns in our sides, but it's by walking with Jesus that we will win this race and be with God in the kingdom of heaven. Let's start now. Let's support each other. Let us lift each other up in prayer. Because one of the things I usually end with my funeral homilies is, I talk about the family, about how we have to be vigilant and ready, because we don't know that moment when we stand before God. Because in the end, we all want to hear those words that God says, that we desperately hear from God by living a life of faith. And what are those words? Our welcome home. So let us live our lives like we want to go home to the kingdom of heaven.